Soz Diplo, just recordings a new tutorial for that internet's catchiers on that flippity flips. Ding! Right, cool. Business out of the way. Tutorial time is now. I'm Multiplier, got a cool tip for you. Basically all about how to make what I call a earthquake kick. Now, I might have invented that word, or someone may have told me it. I can't remember because my brain's not very good at remembering stuff. But yeah, it's basically like an earthquake kick sort of vibe. And it sounds a little bit like this. Have I got my headphones turned on? I have now. Pretty sweet. In the context of a track, it's not my track, but in the context of a track, it sounds like... That being a Jungle Terror track from D-Dots, who told me about this technique on his track Wiki. So yeah, check that ish out. But yeah, it's a cool way to make a kick drum sound that's a little bit different. Normally what you would do is start on with FM synthesis to make the body, then maybe layer up a top layer and do a bit of processing, and that would be that. But what we're doing here is we're actually taking a tom sound. So we have this tom, I think it's this one, a tom like that. We are then running it through some processing, stuff like, are we doing anything straight to it? Yeah, so we are basically doing a bit of EQ, a bit of saturation, a bit of reverb. We're then resampling it and pitching it down. So essentially you're pitching down all the processing as well. So that big bump, that fundamental frequency of the tom becomes the fundamental frequency of the kick as you pitch it down, because as you pitch it down, the fundamental component of that tom gets pitched down, and as a result, you end up with this cool kick with all this cool reverby stuff happening as well. And I think that is what gives you the cool ambience and the whole kind of vibe of the kick drum sound. It's really cool. Check it out again. And that is the idea. So what I thought would be cool is to use this concept that D-Dots was telling me, which I thought was pretty interesting, to make my own similar style kick from scratch and show you guys how it works, because I think it's pretty interesting. So what we'll do is new project, or new live set in this case. Now we're in Ableton, but if you don't have Ableton, the same concepts apply. We're just using standard techniques here. And what we need to do first of all is find some sort of tom sound. So we are going to type in tom into search, because I have no idea where the toms live on my hard drive. So tom, and let's try analog toms maybe. Yeah, let's find a nice one of these analog toms, because why not? Now I want a nice fundamental with a nice shape to it. That could be cool. That one's going to be freaky. This is going to make a mental kick if we choose that one. So we're going to choose that one because we basically like mental things. That is the conclusion. What's happening? Why are you beach balling? Oh, why are you beach balling, you beach ball brain? What are you doing? Ableton never beach balls. Why is it beach balling right now? What just happened? Oh, internet, what's wrong with you? I don't know what just happened there. Anyway, we are back. We are back. We have a tom sound. What happened there? That was weird. So we have a real crazy tom that's going to make a pretty crazy kick. Let's make sure we have the attack of the tom still. So we're hopping into fades. Make sure it's all still there. Notice, yeah, we lost a bit of the attack with the fade, whereas we can get it back by dragging this. Now let's look in a spectrum analyzer as well, because we want to see what's happening to the fundamental of this tom, because we want a nice fundamental that then ends up being the fundamental of the kick when we pitch it down. So spectrum analyzer, and that looks pretty good. You can see we've got this weird kind of double fundamental vibe happening, which is kind of funky, kind of strange. I suppose the lower one's the fundamental, the other one's something else. But that should make for a pretty funkadelic kick drum. So, right, what we need to do is process this, and then we can do the resampling stage and pitch it down and do some additional processing as well. So let's use plugins, because why not? No, let's not use plugins, because most of you probably don't have the plugins I do. So that might be confusing. So let's grab Saturator. I'm in the plugin section, don't want that. We want Audio Effects, Saturator, and maybe pull back on the dry wet and turn up the drive. adding in a few extra harmonics, thickening it up a touch. That should be cool, a nice subtle amount of saturation. Let's add some reverb in there. Now, I think one of these presets will be fine. Let's choose, I think wooden hall even is the one I mean. Is it hall or room that I mean? Wooden something, let's try wooden room. Yeah, let's try wooden room. Yeah, and ease back on the dry wet. Make sure the quality is in high. Turn down the track a touch. Nah, room, defos room. Cool, so actually a bit longer decay time. Cool, so we have some craziness happening. Let's resample it, pitch it down and see what happens. So we will freeze the track, flatten the track, that's the resampling stage. Then maybe consolidate all of that, Command J, learn your shortcuts, and we will remove the fade at the start of that clip, like so. And now we have a processed tom sound. What we can do is load it up into a simpler or a sampler instrument and pitch it down so it becomes a kick. In this case, it'll be a pretty mental kick, but that's cool. We can live with that. And yeah, so simpler. And we will drag in this tom here directly into simpler. We probably can if we just do a bit of this. This what is not, oh, it's not doing what I want it to do. Right, maybe really quick. There you go. You got to sneak up on it. That is the key. I'll show you again. You got to sneak up on Ableton sometimes. So simpler, sneak up on it. There you go. Just dragged it in. Easy peasy. Right. One shot mode because we're triggering it as a one shot. That will simplify what we're doing. Turn off the warp because this is the new complicated simpler, which isn't that simple. It's actually complimpler. If you remember my other video, complicated simpler. So we'll turn off warping because that will just ruin everything. And look at that. So we're basically, when we load this up into simpler, or we could use sampler, it doesn't matter. What we're doing is we're loading it up, and depending on what note we press on the keyboard, we're playing back that sample faster or slower. And as a result, it pitches it up or down accordingly. So if we want to pitch this down, we need to play a low note on the keyboard because that will play back the sample slower. As a result, lower pitch. Rowdy. So let's load up a spectrum analyzer. And we can see, because basically we want the fundamental of this kick to be roughly, I don't know, 50 hertz or so, 50, 60 hertz, depending on where we want to be. So we can look in a spectrum analyzer and play an appropriate note. That's probably too low. Probably a touch too. Actually, because we have almost like two fundamentals, then we might want actually a slightly higher. Actually, because we have two fundamentals, we probably want the lower of the fundamentals, maybe 40 hertz. This is a pretty strange sample. Normally, you don't have two fundamentals. You just have one, and it's nice and simple. But yeah, we're being a bit crazy today. So the lower fundamental is around here where my mouse is. Around F sharp or so. That's probably about right. If you see where these main weighty fundamentals stuff is happening. So you can see all the main energy where all the fundamental of this sound is in the right region. 40 hertz will be the absolute lowest part. Remember, we never want the fundamental lower than 40 hertz. So because we have two, you probably want the lowest one just above 40 and then the higher one up wherever it ends up being. So maybe one of these two notes. Let's turn off the velocity sensitivity as well, because right now, if I press soft, it comes out quiet. If I press hard, it comes back loud, and that is confusing. So we will turn that off with vel down to 0%. One of those two, it doesn't matter too much. Let's just say that one. So what we'll do is draw in a nice simple note, insert MIDI clip. Oh, that dude. What about the next one down? Let's try that. No, next one up. Let's just see what that sounds like. Nah, one down, defo. Sweet, so we'll get rid of that initial tom, and we will bounce that mofo out to audio. Let's just duplicate the loop, make sure it's definitely long enough. So we'll bounce that out to audio again, just to keep things nice and simple. Right click. We are definitely in one-shot mode, aren't we? Yep, so there's no envelope stuff to deal with. And we will right click. Yep, we definitely don't have any fade in. We don't have any fade in at all. So we will right click, freeze track, right click, flatten. That writes it out to audio again. We will double, why is that playing it back? Oh, I duplicated the length of the thing. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o. Forgot to make that longer, like so. I pressed the wrong button basically. And then we will do freeze, flatten. Right, we have it as a new audio ting. Let's double check. Sweet. Come on, J to consolidate as a new audio clip. Cool, so we have something to work with. A cool little trick, whenever you consolidate, it tells you exactly how loud it got in the audio clip. So you see now we've consolidated it, it says -12. So what we could do, if we type in 0, that will normalize it in the clip, which I think is pretty cool. So we can see exactly how the dynamics and everything looks in this kick, and I think that looks pretty good. It's nice and big, chunky, and yeah, it's nice and cool. I like it. So maybe bit of this, maybe draw some sort of pattern vibe out, like so. Oh, did a mistake. What did I do wrong? I need to do that. There you go. Sweet. Maybe that. I'm trying to get the right pattern vibe happening here. There you go. Loop that mofo and you have a lovely jungle terror, and I'm sure there's lots of genres with this style of kick. One thing I forgot to do is actually resample a few different notes of this, because in an actual track, what I probably want to do, just like D-Dots did in his track Wiki, is have maybe 4 bars at one pitch and then 4 bars at another pitch, just to vary things up a little bit. So just like how I pressed a different note and it pitched it slightly differently, it would be cool to bounce out 2 or 3 different versions. So when it comes to arranging, we have a few different options, but that is the idea. Now we could take it one step further and do more processing, but that is neither here nor there. In terms of a cool concept for making an earthquake kick with all this cool ambience, and it's a little bit messy, but at the same time it's got vibe and it's a bit different to normal. I have shown you the process. You take a tom or some drum sound, apply some distortion to maybe thicken it up, ease back on the dry wet, throw in some reverb to put it in a nice space and add some ambience, and then when you throw that resampled into a sampler, you can pitch it down, and as a result you also pitch down all the ambience, not just the tom. I forgot to do the EQ. That didn't matter too much in this case, but I suppose you could do some EQing to maybe highlight the fundamental, because that's basically all you're doing. When D-Dots highlighted when D-Dots did the EQing on the tom around, say, I don't know, 200 hertz or so, 150 hertz, all he's doing is boosting the fundamental frequency, which allows the fundamental frequency to be more there when you then pitch it down as a kick. But in this case, it wasn't too big of a deal because it had a nice fundamental anyway. So right now you can still hear the fundamental. And yeah, for whatever reason, we didn't have to do any dynamic shaping because it all pretty much worked out from the get-go, which I think is pretty sweet. Well, we've got a silly fade I forgot about. So yeah, watch out for your fades whenever you work with audio clips. I missed out on that little fade there. Careless detail. Yeah, all the fades are fine now. But yeah, you can see in the case of this kick drum, this is pretty much dynamically what I would want in a final track for this style of kick. Yes, we could shape it a bit more if we want to, but to be honest, it's pretty much what you want. Typically, whenever you have a big kick like this, you want some dynamics for it to wobble about. That's what gives it that vibe. So you don't want to completely flatten all that wobbliness. And at the same time, overall, it's pretty compressed. You can see the tail is pretty much at the same volume as the attack. Remember, you don't need to compress just for the sake of it. If the dynamics are doing what they should be doing, then you don't need to shape them any further. Compression isn't magic. All you're doing is shaping the dynamics. So in this case, we didn't need it. And there you go. That is a tutorial all about how to make an earthquake kick. I suppose a resampled kick might be another way to look at it. But yeah, I'm going to call it earthquake kick and take full credit for it, even though it's not my idea. It's probably not even D-Dot's idea. I'm pretty sure he found it out from somebody else. But you know what? Who knows how ideas are invented? There's nothing new in music. So there you go. Knowledge, ideas. Make kicks and do cool stuff.